Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. We'll just give it a few more moments before we get started. Folks are still joining in. Yeah. Mm, mm, mm. All right, 502. Shall we get started?
Yes, Shashi.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome and good evening, everyone. Really excited to welcome you all on behalf of the National HRD Network, Mind Matters. My name is Sashidhar. I'm the moderator for the day. I'm based out of Hyderabad and a passionate human resource professional. Before we move forward, I would like to bring up this particular screen where we shall be using Slido for our conversation. Okay. I would request you all to open your either the smartphones, scan the QR code that you'll see on the screen shortly, or even use your web browser and just say slido.com. And you need to punch in the password NHRD, whether small or caps. Easier thing would be to just scan the QR code. And I will be continuing, but this will be active. Please let us know. We just want to know who are you all, where are you joining from, etc. Okay, great. As that goes on, let me take the opportunity to share more about the NHRD and Mind Matters movement with you all. If you remember a couple of years ago when COVID pandemic hit us, a few of my colleagues at the NHRD network got together. They incubated what is called as the Mind Matters Initiative. The primary aim was to destigmatize mental health conversations. Mind Matters offers several initiatives for individuals, families, organizations, and even community at large. Now, there are several initiatives that they have rolled out in several multi-format methods, such as panel discussions, webinars such as these, workshops, and many others. In fact, Mind Matters have also successfully conducted the MH Ambassador Certification Program, right from design to delivery. Secret, next time it's out again, I'm going to join it because I missed the first version of it. Okay, so that said, for this particular session, Mind Matters is partnering with Amaha to deliver this particular session of 60 minutes. Amaha is India's largest mental health organization that was founded in 2016. Okay, before I move forward, let me just see if we have Slidos active. Kolkata, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. Interesting. None from Hyderabad apart from me. Okay, Kolkata is the biggest, so clearly more people from there. Okay, great. Let me stop sharing. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the topic at hand. It's caring for our elders, navigating physical and mental well-being. You all have taken out time to gain awareness on this topic. Firstly, that itself is an important step you have taken. Congratulations. You see, as India experiences profound demographic shifts, evolving family structures from nuclear families to reduction in joint Hindu families or even other large gatherings, the whole point of elderly care, how we take care of the physical and mental needs, have come into sharp focus. Now, with the number of elderly individuals growing very rapidly in our country, I was stunned when I learned about the numbers from the panelists that I will introduce shortly. Many are finding themselves in very uncharted territory. The need to navigate the complex environment around balancing aging and caring is not very simple. So our discussion is going to delve into the multifaceted aspects around caregiving, socio-cultural challenges, community and corporate support to this topic, and most importantly, what practical tips can we as individuals take away from the session and really start implementing in our own lives. What we have come to realize is none of us are immune to elderly care. especially when our time comes. So it's really important that we really pay a focus and understand what it means to really move forward and take informed decisions in one's life. All right, that said, I'm really honored to introduce the three distinguished panelists we have with us today. I'll start off with Suhavna. She holds an MPhil from clinical psychology. She's trained in CBT, mindfulness-based interventions, trauma therapy, and many others. Through her years of experience, she has learned about the role of mental health in overall healthcare and the intersection of mental health with cardiometabolic illnesses. Welcome, Suhavna. We are glad to have you here. I'm also glad to introduce Raghunandan. He's the founder and CEO of Elders India and Elders Wealth. Elders India is dedicated to empowering corporations and individuals to provide comprehensive elder care in India, whereas Elders Wealth is India's first financial services venture focused on post-retirement financial needs. Raghu, thank you for joining in.
Thank you. Thanks
Lastly,
for having.
great. There are many things that I'm already excited to ask once we come to it. So, Bhavna, thank you for joining in. She's the founder of Caregiver Sati, which is an ecosystem that enables compassionate caring. Her research over the years convinced her that well-being of the caregiver is pivotal to the well-being and healing of the patient. Well, this one line is enough. Several things that I'm tempted to ask you, but yes, let's get on with the flow. So to the audience here on the call, and the numbers are climbing, glad to see that. Firstly, the session will be recorded. It will be hosted on YouTube. Mind Matters has several handles on social media. We encourage you to tap in, share, and above all, though we reserve 10 minutes for Q&A towards the end, the slider that you saw will be active throughout the session. Feel free to post in your questions. All right, with that, shall we get started? There are one or two questions that I would firstly like to ask our audience here to really get an understanding and really help our panelists get a feel of what is the composition here. So go ahead and answer this question. How informed are you about this topic to start with on a scale of 1 to 5? Limited awareness versus a thorough awareness along the scale. 4. Oh, fantastic. Great. Okay. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds before we move on. Okay, to the panelist, we are seeming to have people who are not totally strangers to the subject. That's good to know. All right, last question before we move on. What barriers have you faced in your role as a caregiver? Now that you have told us that you're already, aware of some of the challenges and being adept at this topic. This is an open text. Feel free to punch in your comments as you see fit. Now, while we are at that, and you are really taking out time to punch in your comments, I'd like to start off with all the three panelists. Would you please take 2 minutes each and tell us why this subject? Why did you choose this as an area in your life to spend a lot of time? And really, any opening remarks on the topic for the day itself? We can start with Bhavna.
Thank you, Shashi. Delighted to be here and delighted to have this conversation. I was faced with two things. One, a midlife crisis that seemed to hit me very early. So as I was navigating my entry into 40s, I seemed to hit my midlife crisis. And I had to do some deep contemplation about what I want the purpose of my life to be. And as I reflected back, I realized that a big turning point or contributor to my life has been the fact that I lost my father fairly early. And I have been a caregiver for more than 30 years. And I was seeing myself as the caregiver to the primary caregiver. My mother was the primary caregiver. And for me, setting up Caregiver Sati is at the intersection of my life experience, my academic qualifications, and my, certain things that I'm passionate about. I believe that caregivers are fairly invisible, unrecognized, and underappreciated. I felt like that too. And I believe that if there was something that I could make my life purposeful with, would be to shine the light on caregivers and the challenges of caregiving, especially in South Asia. So, if not me, who else? Was the arrogance that I had. And, a lot of people know this. I'm a motorcyclist. So I like to go off the road. So here I am.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bhavna. Raghu, can you hear from you?
Sure. So, similar to what Bhavna mentioned, it's always a personal experience or the need that kind of drives a lot of our own initiatives. I was with IT industry, with IBM and Cisco in senior positions, and the gaps that I saw while trying to take care of my ailing father, and the realization that this is a much larger problem, made me look at starting Elders India. And as part of the opening comments, I just wanted to say, look, when you look at the topic that says caring for elders, where does it start? It starts in the family, of course. Who in the family? It cannot be the younger children who themselves need care. It's those who are of working age.
Right.
And they are by and large employees or potential employees of organizations, and they have their work pressures, professional career demands of personal time, and of course from the immediate family and the parents, as they become vulnerable. So lack of time, lack of awareness and preparedness. So they need a lot of support. Second, in terms of you did mention in your opening comments about the demographic changes, right? If you look at the bigger picture, people are obviously living longer now and having fewer children per family. The working age population is soon going to start declining. And therefore, fewer working age population caring for more elders is a real issue that we are going to be faced with. And frankly, very few of us are even able to understand what are the needs of the elders, right? Elders themselves may not be often in a position to articulate as well. And when we talk about physical health, mental health, it's not even just the healthcare in the traditional sense. For example, if the elder or the family has financial challenges, it will have mental health implications, anxiety, depression, feeling of guilt or shame, and may even have relationship and physical health impact. Therefore, the point is it's a lot more complex issue than, let's say, childcare. And there are multiple stakeholders, elders themselves, the sons and daughters, their employers, various service providers, others like government, etc. So all of these stakeholders need to come together to make it effective. And the Elders India, the organization of founded, is a step in that direction. So let me stop here as the opening comment.
Sure thing. You touched on several things, Raghu. No, I appreciate it. We'll come back to some of the key things that both Bhavna and Raghu you touched. Suhamna, from your side, please. What has been your view to the topic and why this topic? Yeah.
Hi. So I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and I think what really drew me to start working with the elderly is that throughout my education, we barely had any syllabus that covered anything about elder care. I think starting from a point of just creating awareness, considering this is what I studied. This was a population that was rising in numbers, given how healthcare has changed especially in India and all lower middle income countries. But it wasn't something that was being included in our syllabus. And so that got me curious. And I started working in the field of dementia care largely, but all geriatric population healthcare. And I think that took me to understanding the caregiver burden in a huge way, because of course, caregivers are burdened by all of mental health conditions, but I think in a degenerative disorder, and that essentially means that there's going to be constant worsening of their mental health. the caregiver burden is unimaginable. And it's not, I think what draws me the most to this topic is it's not just about mental health. It's about a socio-cultural problem. It's about an economic problem. It's the burden of the entire disease and of all mental health for the geriatric is not just about one spectrum. It becomes about the caregiver's entire life. It engulfs their entire life. And I think that something that is often neglected in a lower middle income country is quality of life. It is, you have food, you have shelter, you have the necessary things to be healthy. So that should be enough for happiness. And I think that's what really draws me to this topic, focusing on, of course, our clients, but also the caregivers' quality of life and being able to help them have the best quality of life they can while being caregivers.
Got it. Wonderful. Wonderful. There are few commonalities, but very divergent views also from each of you. That shows your areas of expertise, right? So I have an observation on the comments that we have gathered. But before that, Bhavna, would you like to complete the thought on the previous question? Anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, thank you for that. I just realized that I didn't talk about what about this particular topic interests me. I grew up in a household which was a joint family. My father was the only son, and I grew up in the loving care of grandparents. Not only did I have my grandmother, who was very present and very supportive of my working mother, over years, when my grandfather had his brain surgery, as a teenager, I was actively involved in his recovery. And I believe that even this experience has significantly informed the kind of adult, the kind of woman, the kind of citizen, and the kind of professional I have become. So I believe that we need to look at this topic not just from the lens of providing support to older adults, but from the point of how can younger adults benefit from the act of caregiving to a variety of people, including older adults. So it is a multi-generational challenge, and which is why I'm excited to be here. Thank you for bringing it back.
No, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. When I look at the comments, there are broadly three themes coming. And interestingly, we did want to touch upon some of this. Broadly, I'm seeing things around finance crunch. How do you really plan and cater to it? Great. There's a lot of comments around emotionally, how it is carrying a huge burden on us if we don't plan for it, for the individual as well as for the caregiver. Then I'm also seeing around ability to strike balance between work, personal requirements for those who are the working population. What support can they get from the community or organizations at large? Fantastic. Great comments, everyone. But let me zoom back and ask the question that I've heard from at least two out of the three when you gave your initial remarks, which is around the socio-cultural setting as well as the family structures, right? What's the impact do you see that the changing family structures are really having? Is it really culturally anything that is very new to India? Or what should we watch out for given this trajectory? Anyone for that matter.
I'll just make one comment. See, what we are not used to as a country is a sudden increase in the life expectancy, right? For 100 years, between 1825 and 1925, the life expectancy was flat. And in the last 100 years, it's increasing. Initially at 4.5 years per decade. Even today, it's 2.5 years per decade. So this is a phenomenon that's fairly new to us, as a country. And some of the other Western or more developed economies has had a more gradual aging of the society, if I may say so. And secondly, if you look at as the life expectancy increased, primarily initially it was driven by the reduction in the infant mortality, right? And the number of children was increasing. But now, since mid-70s or so, the number of children as a percentage of population has started going down significantly. And at the same time, the number of elders has started to climb, and now it's going exponentially. And the working age population, at some point, the number of children coming down will impact the working age population. We're all so much aware of this demographic dividend, and which is in terms of increasing working age population, it's going to start coming down. The reason why this is important is now you have a lower number of working age population who will be taking care of increasing um, the number of elders, right?
Right.
So the family structure, earlier used to have at least, when you had 2 or 3 children in the family, at least when one of the siblings moved to a city, the other one potentially would stay back to the parents, and everything is still okay. Because you could share the caregiving burden or with your siblings. But now you are having to kind of take up that responsibility, which you are potentially not prepared for. Second is, it's not, when we talk about caregiving, it's not just about chronic caregiving after somebody gets bedridden. Caregiving, all of us are caregivers in some sense, right? When we talk about childcare, all parents are, doing this. And similarly, all children are caregivers. It's just that, what you call it as care changes. So when this transition is occurring, right, now you're having more and more urban elderly. The urban elderly population is growing at almost 2 to 3 times the rural elderly population, because some of these parents are also moving when
Right.
the only child moves, right,
Medical support
to the city.
Right.
When they move, what are those needs that would have been automatically taken care of in a joint family setting, in a familiar environment, in their own small towns, would have to be explicitly provided for.
Right.
And that recognition of what those needs are something that elders themselves are not able to articulate often. Only when such circumstances come, they will come to that, and much less the children. So when you talk about the changing family structures, this is what is happening. And that's why I believe corporates also become a stakeholder, because this migration and the related issues that the elders face, and the changing family structures that the employees are going to face, is to some extent is a result of jobs being available primarily in the cities, right? So there is a much larger problem that the entire society economy has, Sohavna was also facing. But family structures and the changing demographics have a lot to do with that.
Lot to do with that. Wonderful. You just expanded the definition for me when you said that. But you know what? I want to zoom out and stay longer with the problem. And again, open question to all of you is, why isn't that it's already a relevant topic? Because it looks like it is everybody's story at some stage in their life. Everybody has to come and become a caregiver of self, junior, elder, or even pets for that matter. What are some misconceptions, and why isn't it already a top topic on people's minds?
Let me come in on that, because I think that we have a large number of stereotypes around caregiving. For example, you will find both men and women talking about how care or caregiving or nurturing is the prerogative or the skill or something that you get simply because you have 2 X chromosomes. I don't think so. I think, it is not a function of your number of chromosomes or anything else, but it is a function of what is it that you have built your skills and muscles in. So one of the other trends, in addition to what Raghu has mentioned, that has been happening is that as a society, we are now beginning to challenge the patriarchal setup. And as we challenge the patriarchal setup and we say that it has its dysfunctionalities, we are saying that we need to provide for equal gender opportunities irrespective of the gender that you come from. And gendered roles need to reduce. So all of us need to have access to opportunities, not just in homes, but in workplaces. Workplaces have been on the trajectory of trying to get women into the workplace. but have been finding that not just getting women through the education process into the workplaces has been a challenge, but we have increased the inflow, perhaps, of bringing women into the workforce through engineering colleges or management schools or medical schools or whatever else. But we are still finding that there is a steady fall in terms of you're not able to get women to sustain at the workplace because socioculturally, like Suhavna pointed out, there are norms that caregiving is, because a mother breastfeeds the child, because you produce a child, because women are nurturing, etc., are some ideas that are stereotypical and hackneyed, according to me, which seem to grip us as a society, and which is why caregiving is gendered. And a large amount of caregiving is unpaid care work that women disproportionately shoulder. We have enough statistics about it. In India, it is as high as 10 times that the men do. And the unpaid care work is not just the cooking, cleaning, and the taking care. There is a significant cognitive load of caregiving in terms of just managing. For example, aaj khane mein kya banega? Or, who will take the person to the doctor? How will you manage, coordinate, etc.? All of this automatically, irrespective of urban, rural, upper middle class, disproportionately is shouldered by women, and society is shifting. We are now trying to say that women should get equal opportunities, but the way that it is happening, and like my mother said, that when she wanted to work, she was told that, okay, you can work if you can manage home and work. And a large number of women handle 2-3 jobs. And if you have 2 children, 2 pets, and 2 elderly, and maybe 2 in-laws, and 2, it's just only adding up. So that's another trend that we have to be mindful of.
Interesting. No, the whole gender angle into it and how some duties are naturally seen as one gender owned is really something to be thought through. And I'm sure it's evolving. Some of the corporate policies in India, even our own maternity leave, as I look at the global, industry and look at and compare policies, not everybody's even giving 6. I think we are moving there, but lots to be done.
Yeah, so sorry, but I have to say that maternity leave is a double-edged sword. Good maternity leave has its benefits, but extra maternity leave can make
Absolutely.
Women believe that they can take a break from work, and men believe that they don't need to. So maternity, there's enough research to suggest that how large maternity leave also impacts women badly at the workplace. So it needs to be seen as parental leave, which has to be shared between both the genders when it is a heterosexual marriage. And there are consequences of maternity, paternity leave as well.
Right.
I know that that's going to be another topic, and I would like to give some airtime to Suhavna as well.
No, sure. No, good input there. So, when I was coming to you, some of the initial comments from the audience was about the emotional burden of it as well as the physical burden of it, right? So let's zoom in on that. The topic is also that. So the question really is, what are some of those natural aspects of aging that can be managed with proper care? And what signs might indicate a need for a professional intervention? How will people distinguish that? If you could share your thoughts.
Yeah. So as any of us, all of us age, there are changes that occur in our body physically, mentally, and that's natural aging. That's a natural progression that happens. But I think a big part of, to take a step back, how can we really maybe protect ourselves as we age, is to start healthy practices early as prior to 45 years, 30 years of age, right? It's never too early to start, really. There's something called a cognitive reserve, which is essentially our mental ability to be resilient in the face of disease, in the face of any kind of impact that might happen cognitively to us. And what helps build that is essentially starting from primary education. So starting off with the need for implementing policy level changes in low middle income countries like India for education to be free and awareness of it. And why is it important? It's not just important so I can get a job. It's important so that I can shape my life a particular way as I move forward. Social engagement is also a form of keeping ourselves cognitively engaged, right? And I kind of want to draw in what Bhavna said before about the gender angle. I think women through the years are caregiving for so long that it gives them little time often to form other forms of social engagement, to form other hobbies, which are all very important when we're looking at the trajectory of just elder care, because now, as Raghunandan had pointed out, with our lifespan increasing, there's a need for cognitive mental engagement post-retirement. For all these years, there was very few years post-retirement because the lifespan was less. But now one of the biggest concerns that are coming up is that there is no engagement cognitively. I live in a nuclear family. Maybe my two children go away to work. So I have to engage myself cognitively. Isolation is a big factor. If the pandemic taught us anything, not just the elderly, all of us felt the impact of the isolation. Social isolation is a big reason why elder mental health and physical health take such an impact. Identifying lifestyle illnesses, even like diabetes, hypertension, that lead to later stage mental health concerns can be identified if there's just more awareness of all of this. So starting from just taking care of ourselves earlier to elder care and awareness of it. Now, coming to the bit about how do we really know if you need to seek help from a professional, I don't think there's a line to draw. I don't think I can give you a definitive answer, but I don't think it's ever too early to just seek help. To get the way that we do physical health checkups, it's okay if we're in doubt, if I'm noticing my parent or my grandparent needing a little more help doing something that they would have done with a lot of ease even a year or two ago, it's important to reach out for help, because sometimes cognitive changes are natural, but sometimes they can also be a consequence of physical health conditions. Sometimes they can be a consequence of other mental health conditions that are setting on. And it's very difficult for someone who's not a trained clinician to tell that difference. And I don't think they should be expected to be able to do that. So I don't think that we should hold back from reaching out. Any time that you're in doubt, I think is a good time to reach out.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, there's a book called The 100-Year Life that I recently came across, which talks about the ever-increasing span of life and how the proportion of the working time of your life is also increasing, and how elder care will become very natural phenomena, and it's a mandatory thing, if not urgent, right? So everything Raghu and Suhavna, whatever you just said, right, I could align it there. So by the way, we asked a question to the audience, and I'll just bring it up for all of us to see. More like to put things in perspective, really, how urgent is the problem numerically? For those who may have that question, this should answer. So, well, 5 responses say we can do better. We'll just give it 5 to 10 seconds before we reveal the answer, and you're in for a shock anyway. When we were having this conversation before the panel discussion, right, all of you pointed out, and the first thing I did after the conversation was to go and read about it, because it came as a surprise to me, for sure. Okay.
You know, while we wait for the responses to come, and I'm looking at Devika's message, which is that, you know, 100-year life is scary. What I'd like to do is say that, you know, many of us have grown up in our growing up years, seen our grandparents, for example, pass on, we believed that, they've lived full lives and passed on at the age of, in their 70s. And now we are increasingly seeing that people very comfortably, move on to their 80s, etc. And by the time the next lot comes up, 90s and 100s will only be a thing. So while there is a different challenge for us who are growing older, and the times are changing as well, right? So we have to be mindful of the fact that we are in a very technology environment, we are in a very different kind of a setting, etc. I think it is equally important to know that we haven't changed the socio-cultural expectation that sons and daughters-in-law will do this, that, and the other, whereas that how long that is required and how much of that is required has significantly changed. And there is no negotiation with some of these things. Right. We grow up with stories of Shravan Kumar and Savitri and whatever else, and we have created certain ideals. So caregivers, one, in India, we don't identify as caregivers. There is no term equivalent to a caregiver in any of the languages. And there are unconscious expectations of us as caregivers. And I think we should consider that, because we don't even know what we are in for. I was hoping that I would be done by the time I'm 50, 54, but looks like it's not going to happen.
Very interesting perspective. Thanks, Bhavna. All right. So looking at the numbers, looks like our audience is divided on all the numbers that we have published. Okay. Well, here's the answer. The biggest number out there is the answer, 279%. There is an article in The Hindu, which I referenced to build this question. We'll share it in the link shortly for you all to read. But yeah, I mean, the magnitude of the problem is rather clear. 1 second. Okay. It's stealing my thunder by taking to the next question. But hey, I want to focus on the whole corporate piece of it, since we spoke about policy, how much, what support system, etc. I don't know, maybe Raghu, specific to you, right? How do you see organizations addressing this? Isn't it an individual's prerogative to really make hay when the sun shines and really cater for it?
Absolutely. So, see, organizations, if you actually look at again going back to 50 years, right? We used to have the working age population, increasing a bit, but primarily the number of children started going up significantly, and typically all the corporates stepped up, and there is also a mandatory need to provide for childcare. So that was kind of well understood. Now it's implemented elsewhere, everywhere. As I told, the number of elders growing and the nuclear family is a fairly recent phenomenon, and the implications are still getting understood. For example, you put that question, the number of 80-year-olds between now and 2050 is going to grow 279%. That needs to be seen in the context of the overall population growing only 18% during that period.
Right.
And the 60+ population growing at something like 120%. So this is a fairly recent phenomenon. And if you look at between 2000 and 2022, that was a fairly much lower numbers, right? It didn't appear like scary. So in 1950, for every 100 working age population, there used to be 50 children and 9 elders that the working age population was supporting.
Okay.
Now by 2050, there will be more elders than the children that the working age population has to support. So it's a transition that the employees, the structure of the country in terms of the population demographics, that's happening as of now, and most of the corporates are not yet fully aligned to this. So most of the time, okay, the way they support elders, as you said, anyway, I'm giving you enough CTC. I will also give you, the ability for you to avail insurance for your parents, and that's about it. But the real problem, Shashi, is that, as Bhavna mentioned, many of the caregivers don't identify themselves as caregivers. You are not prepared for that phase of your life, right? You're not prepared to see. You're so used to getting the care from your parents that the time when this flips, you're just not prepared, right? It just happens. And for child, at least the nature also gives you some time to kind of say that, okay, this is imminent, and and there is a lot more uniformity, right? Of what happens, when you give the child care, and there is a definite endpoint. The children grow. Here, that is not there. So if as the statistics that you share displayed show, more and more of elders live in the family for much longer.
Right.
And as Suhavna would testify, the number of comorbidities will start to increase, and that will have both physical and mental health implication, and therefore caregiving implications. These are fairly new, and the corporates have not yet stepped up for this. So because it's a fairly new. Second, one of the reasons that we were looking at when we looked at Elders India is what is also preventing even some corporates who are a little more ahead of the curve, and they want to implement something to really support the employees. You may have your organization in one or two cities, right? But your employees can have their parents anywhere in the country, right? And increasingly, with let's say South India, already the population will, the fertility ratio has gone down well below 2, and eventually, unless the migrations happen, you'll soon get into labor shortage, right? You will have a lot of mobility. So you will have your parents even as of today anywhere in the country, and unless you are able to have a mechanism where all your employees can be reasonably supported, if you have it as a policy, it becomes a non-starter. So therefore, when we looked at this problem, as much as it was very tempting to just go solve the problem doing the last mile service yourself, we were looking at putting the ecosystem together so that there is a way for corporates to ensure that all the employees, regardless of where their parents are, can get supported. And thirdly, as Bhavna and Suhavna mentioned, there is this gender differential, right? So even when you are able to attract women, as Bhavna mentioned, we're not able to sustain and get them in the professional career for too long because of this caregiving responsibility attached to them. So unless corporates start to increase this, so only about 30% of women are participating in the labor force among the working age population, whereas it's 75 plus for males, right? To address that, caregiving has to be something that even the corporates have to look at. Otherwise, you'll also start getting into real skills shortage, right? You're not able to get the right mix. And just to go back to the point that that was earlier mentioned about the gender diversity, caregiving is a DEI issue. We typically look at DEI as purely just gender and LGBTQ or let's say the disability and all that. Caregiving is a key DEI issue. So by supporting the employees for elder care, you're going to be doing a great service and touching upon all of these issues.
Fantastic.
And now I see a little more, over the last 2 years, we've kind of had multiple roundtables in multiple cities. I do see a lot more awareness, and at least now the discussion is changing to how they need to do rather than why they should do.
Makes sense. No, sure. Thank you. Bhavna, so if you are to add, please build upon it, but please cite one or two examples that
Yeah.
we can walk away with as well. That'll help. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me build on what Raghu said. And, it's so important that so many of us build the awareness around the issues of different types of care. The fact that, employees are caregivers. I'd like to point you to a research that was done by BCG recently, in which they spoke about the caregiving crisis around the world in general, and then specifically around Southeast Asia, where the BCG report says that the number of employee caregivers in Southeast Asia is as high as 60% if there were only two categories of employees, caregivers versus non-caregivers. And in India, believe it or not, that ratio is as high as 88% to 12%. And there are lots of implications of the fact that employee caregiver population is going to increase. They are worried about their well-being. They might leave the workforce. There is potentially a GDP impact of as high as $250 billion. Now, let's take the perspective of the organization. So let's say some hard-nosed businessmen would say that an organization exists for the purpose of being a profitable entity that provides products and services for the market that it caters to. And if you are that leader who is worried about that, then you would be invested in making sure that the organization is resilient and sustainable and innovative enough with a stable workforce that is able to deliver to your goals, right? So if you are that organization that is interested in maximizing profitability, in ensuring that you have a stable workforce, in ensuring that you are innovating for the products and services that you are providing and competing in the marketplace, then it is important for you to consider what makes the workplace efficient and the increasing demand on employees is caregiving responsibilities, sometimes of children, sometimes of older adults, and many times for the middle management being the sandwich generation. So the middle management, we know, is the most critical link in any organization, which is preoccupied because of the pulls and pressures of caregiving. So any organization that wishes to be successful in the long term, not just on account of efficiency or on account of innovation or on account of simply making sure that you're doing better than competition, would want to be able to see. And I will give you something simple. Most organizations do exit interviews. Most people, especially women, when they leave the workforce, will quote personal reasons for leaving. 99%, our research suggests, at Caregiver Sathi, we did a research across organizations, and it suggests that most women who quote personal reasons for leaving an organization are leaving on account of caregiving responsibilities one way or the other. And organizations, HR teams, or leaders who are interested in this, or you're interested in, like Raghu said, it's a DEI issue. Why is it a DEI issue? It is a DEI issue because not just because it supports women, but because the skill of working across generations, across genders, across different type of people is the skill of empathy and working across diversity is what organizations need. So as an OD professional or as an HR professional, I would work with organizations to say, if you want to build these competencies and skills that will make you sustainable in the long run, then making sure that you have a heady mix of caregivers in your workplace and they are well supported is a good thing to do.
Wonderful. Great. Interesting perspective there. So I'd like to pivot to a different topic, but Suhavna, you had anything to say on this topic as well?
Yeah, I just have a small point to add to this. I think
sure.
they've both quoted a lot. And what I really want to add to this is, caregivers are employees, and employees' health has to be placed as a priority if any outcomes are going to be positive. There was a recent study that was published by the British Medical Journal, and the point that stood out to me that they really highlighted was lifestyle of caregivers was taking a big impact compared to non-caregivers of a similar age group. Right? They spoke a lot about how eating, exercising, smoking, consumption of alcohol, all of this was much higher in caregivers because they are ways of coping. Stress impacts them. And when stress impacts any of us, these are very often stop exercising and start eating more junk food, start ordering in via various delivery services. All of this is impacting their health. Leave alone what it's going to be doing to their health in 10, 20 years when they are elderly. In today, they're not going to be having good mental health. Anxiety, depression is on the rise. So if your employees are not going to be able to cope with their own lifestyles, then it's definitely going to show up in the workplace.
Makes sense. Super. Hey, I know we are almost on time here. I would like to move to a rapid fire if you all are okay. Unplanned, but that's me. Okay, there are 2 to 3 questions. One line quick tips from you would really help our audience, right? So to continue on what we were talking, to a caregiver, all right, emotionally, how do they protect themselves as they are giving care to somebody at home, right? One tip from all of you. Emotional, luggage, how can they not take on as they are playing the role of a caregiver? Maybe Suhavna, you can start with you and then go to Bhavna and Raghu.
I know you said rapid fire, but I have so much to say about this. So I'm going to try to summarize it. I'm going to try to summarize it to 2 points, though.
Sure.
I think first, it's okay as a caregiver to sometimes prioritize yourself. You have to, because you have to have your bucket full in order to try to fill in and make someone else happy. I think there's a lot of guilt that comes with doing that as a caregiver. It's a very conflicted role for someone to take on, and they often need to be told, and they're not told enough by our society and culture. They're only told that they're not doing enough. They're not told that it's okay to take a break. It's okay to prioritize themselves. And I think secondly, I say this to almost every caregiver I say, it's very important that you reach out for help. It's not a sign of how well you're caregiving or how well you're doing in life. It is very, very tiring. Please reach out for help. There is so many concerns. First of all, being able to fully understand whatever illness you're caregiving for, or not even an illness, just elderly life. It's changing. Socially, our world is changing. So we have to be able to adapt, and it can only help.
Yeah. So prioritize self and reach out for help as needed. Totally cool with it. All right, Bhavna, over to you.
The first thing I would say is embrace the identity of a caregiver. I'm proud to be a caregiver. I'm a caregiver. I am a caregiver. Someone beautifully wrote to me a message on LinkedIn and said, I have been reading your posts and I have decided to include it in the title of my description. So I'm going to encourage all of you to think about yourself as a caregiver and include it with pride that you're a caregiver. The first thing that we can do, so if you look at Atomic Habits, the first thing that we can do is embrace an identity that I am a caregiver, right? Having said that, I would also encourage us to think about it like a role. Yeah. Just like you take a product manager role, you take an HR manager role, you take a site engineer role. When you take a role, you also take the role of a caregiver. What that means is that it is not you. It is different from you. So you step into the role of a caregiver and you have the opportunity to step out of that role of a caregiver. That means that you can, what Suhavna said, because you're stepping into the role of a caregiver, you need to learn it. You need to take help for it. You need to engage and enroll other people in it. And it is okay. And it is not defined by your gender. Yeah. So I think that it is always a little tension of embracing it, but embracing it in a way that it is a role that you can take help for it. And I think that the other thing that I would say is be a little light and playful about it. So talk about being a caregiver like it is one of the multiple balls that you're juggling. you are a happy person, you're a humorous person, you like these activities, this hobby, and among many other things, you're a caregiver as well.
Got it.
So I'm hoping that you will be able to have some memes and jokes and humor about caregiving and not just the burden of caregiving.
Let's load up Insta. Why not? I know, very refreshingly new idea, Bhavna. Thank you for that. Raghu, I know we are moving slow fire, but still I want to get this input from you as well.
Okay, no, very quick one. So very good tips indeed from Suhavna and Bhavna. But one other issue which will add to the stress if it is not understood and planned for is the financial aspects of it, right? So I'll just say that longevity is a given. So you need to expect that this is going to happen. They're going to live longer because the medical field has also stepped up. So you just need to make sure that financially you plan for it, just as you plan for your children education, everything else. This also needs to be planned. If you are not insured, if the parents are not insured, please do that. And most importantly, something that happened to me. My father suffered a stroke, and whatever he used to do, I never, even though I was the only son, I never went and asked him, where he's doing his investments and so on. And when finally he couldn't remember anything, I don't know what he has not told me, and I lost him 3 years ago. So please make sure that this particular information, that one talk with the person that you are giving care to happens. And all of us, and definitely elderly, should make sure that we do the estate planning and make sure that this doesn't become an added stress to the caregivers.
Wonderful. Wow. Very, very new way to look at it. Raghu, thank you. I have few more rapid fire, but we don't have time. But I'm sure you all are available beyond the session today as well. Thank you for expanding the scope and heightening our awareness on the subject. Really appreciate it. I would like to now call on Madhulika Majumdar. She's the head of growth and partnerships at Amaha, and would like to address you all. Audience, please stay on. You are in for a surprise. Madhulika, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashida. First of all, I just want to say this has been such an incredibly powerful session. I really want to thank each and every one of you, Bhavna, Raghu, Suhavna, Shashi. It's been really transformational. And this is something, this topic on elder care, caregiving is something that is very close to my heart as well. I too am a caregiver, and Bhavna, as you mentioned, I'm a proud caregiver as well. I actually embarked into the world of mental health because of a lived experience of being a caregiver. And that was to my wonderful grandmother who, unfortunately was struggling with late stage dementia and Alzheimer's. And, just being with her through that journey of, exploring the healthcare ecosystem and having to face the struggles of, there being a lack of empathy across all stakeholders, and also a lack of awareness of very basic knowledge from both sides, from healthcare providers as well as us as caregivers. I feel, Shashi, that when you shared that question on what are the barriers towards caregiving, I feel like I touched each and every one of those, and I struggled with each and every one of them, right from having to take on an emotional burden to, having to struggle with not being able to control what is in my control as well, right? And having that complete breakdown of quality of life, watching that from my grandmother's position, and also, of course, being unable to control mine. But it was because I had the good fortune of a very good support system that I took on mental health, I took on therapy, and that in itself was so transformational. And that actually is what made me a mental health advocate. And from then onwards, it was no turning back. And I realized if that could change mine, if I could even change or touch one more life, that's enough for me. And so that sort of brings me into my journey with Amaha as well. Our main promise over here is to deliver this high quality care, and not just to individuals, right? Because as individuals, as Shashi, as Raghu, as Sohamna, you all mentioned that we wear so many different hats. We're parents, we're caregivers, we're I guess children ourselves as well. We're employees, right? We're managers, we're leaders, and to top it all off, at some point, we are caregivers. And each of us, as different cohorts, wherever we are in that journey, we all have very different needs. And that's what we as Amaha are here for, to be able to cater to each and every individual to their personalized needs, wherever they are on that spectrum, whether it's on the preventive side all the way to curative. So whether you're trying to build healthy habits, put an oxygen mask on yourself before caring for others, as Suhavna mentioned. So bringing in self-care, to not feeling isolated, to also getting medication management on our platform, where we have psychiatrists on board, especially for severe end of the spectrum, right? And I'd love to take just a couple of minutes to just walk you through how we can provide this emotional support and what we like to call an ecosystem of care. I'll just quickly bring up a few slides and quickly walk you through what we provide. And let me know if you're able to see my screen. Yeah?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So we are overall integrated mental health ecosystem. We look at three major pillars, right? We look at diagnosing, and then we look into an action plan, and then how do we engage? And this is within the realms of the workplace itself, right? We support organizations right from small, medium enterprises all the way to large corporates, as well as plants and factories and automotive industries as well. Right? So our journey begins across all employees, including their family circles. As we've all realized, a care circle is a very core part of any individual's journey, and so we extend that support across. And Shashi, I remember you mentioned 88% is the overall caregiver burden, and it's still small, but we are able to support now about 10%. So, and we hope to continue doing that and doing more of it as well, right? So we start off our journey with understanding what is the baseline? What is the baseline stress? What is the baseline emotional health of the overall workforce, right? And that can be done through a survey, that's done through assessments. We then move on to an action plan, wherein we bring in different modes of support, right? We have therapy, we have psychiatry, and we have our own OPDs across the country, in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, where you and I, who may or may not be associated with an organization, can also walk in. We're also in the midst of setting up an IPD. So we're really happy to be able to provide that full spectrum of care once again in any mode that's possible. We then further also have a self-care app, which is evidence-based, and we have over 600 different tools and techniques to help support an individual, especially for those who, let's say, are not ready to take on therapy, right? We have different people at different ends of the spectrum, and so we want to make sure there are enough touch points for any individual, whoever wants to seek support, right? And then, of course, we have group intervention, support, and awareness building activities within an organization. We create a lot of awareness, once again, contextualized to the cohorts within an organization. So whether it's parents again, whether it's mothers, fathers, whether it's Gen Z, or now we're talking about intergenerational workforces and their very separate needs, right? And their own sort of, I would say, unmet requirement for healthcare, for mental health care. So we create webinars and workshops and on-ground activities to help support them and, of course, create awareness. And finally, we always say that we have to get leaders involved right from the top, because it culture is set from the top, and it then percolates across managers and across employees. We do a lot of discussion panels. We've started looking at building mental health policies for different organizations as well. And finally, being even able to support leaders who, for them is a little lonely on the top, right? And providing self-care as well as a full leadership program just for them. So this is a quick sort of a walkthrough of our ecosystem of care. And finally, I will also end with a small gift from our side for all those who have created time to be here. We'd love to give you a 10% lifetime offer for our therapy services. You can scan the code, you can utilize this code which is written over here. And we will also be following it up with an email with this attached. So if you do miss out on it, don't worry, we have you covered. So we'll send this across to you as well. Thank you so much, Devika. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to be here.
Thank you, Madhulika. And thank you, Suhavna, Raghunandan, Bhavna. I think, it's been a great session. Madhulika, if you could stop sharing, please, for a moment. We'll close out the session. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. And there is a recording. We will make the recording available to you also. You could share it in your networks as well, in the days to come. Thank you very much. I'm going to close this session out because we are well over time now. And we've lost, I think about 10 people have dropped off in the last few minutes. So thank you so much for your time. We've learned so much. I think it's a big wake-up call for everybody. And thank you for pointing us to avenues that we can seek support as well. Yeah, between the three panelists, I think there are different avenues that can be explored by everybody who's attended this session. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Devika. Enjoyed the
Thank
session.
you for
Thank
having
you.
this session. Glad to have been here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for building awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.